if you want to give a little bit of introduction of
Well,
the
just to
session
say,
or.
one of the things that I mean, originally when Itamar and I were talking about this, he ran on one of the slates for the WZO, and this was an extraordinary election for a number of reasons. I know probably everybody on this call voted for some party or another, and Itamar was part of an internal progressive Zionist party within Israel, AID, and which is, I think, America Israel Democracy Party. Many
Yes.
of you voted for vote reform. Some of you voted for Merkaz, and there were a few other parties that might have drawn your attention. So Itamar is going to share some of the preliminary results and what they indicated, also, and but also how the parties have still operate and are engaged when Israel is in crisis. There's so many questions that we in America would have. For example, what does the WZO mean in the scheme of world events? When there's a war, when America's involved in something, when Israel's made a military decision, what's how is the WZO just like a cosmetic thing? Is it more like Buckingham Palace in England versus the Parliament? Or what's the? I'm sort of interested in learning more about the relationship between those two bodies of governance. One which has a really represents the American Jewish interest, which is all of us who care about Israel. So, with that, Itamar, we'll let the conversation unfold. I'm sure some people will have questions. Maybe you'll even be able to see some faces. That would be wonderful. So,
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the introduction. And just to let you know, I apologize. I do have actually meeting starting at 10, so my time is a little bit short, but prepared prior to the meeting also. I'm currently in my office at work. And so I did want to really, when Marsha reached out, I wanted to make myself available, and I really am so excited to really provide an update and really just kind of humbly saying that, I don't have all the information. I have only information I do have, and I'm happy to share with you and happy to have a discussion. I know you all have great deal of wisdom and understanding of the community, but I can just give you a little bit of background first. Um, kind of very short. Of course, the elephant in the room is Iran-Israel war. I cannot speak about it. It's a huge thing right now. And the Gazan war and all those hostages are still there. And so that's really the landscape right now that we deal with, October 7th, the tragedies. That's our landscape. And so we are in a very, very different time now. And when I'm looking at I'm early 60s right now, and um I've never remember anything close to that. When I grew up in Israel, I grew up in a kibbutz, and my teachers would talk about the World War II and 1948 and 1967. I mean, I was just still a baby at that time, or a young kid. You know, to me, those were the historical moments, defining moments, and there were. But we are again in this kind of really defining moment right now for Israel and for the American for the Jewish world as a in general. So I'm finding that I'm finding the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing. I'll tell a little bit more about it as really important for me, so that I can really talk to my grandchildren when I have grandchildren, and really explain to them what we have done, what things we've done, and what is the legacy we want to carry on to them, to their generations. So like I said, I grew up in Israel. I came here in the 90s, and I married a Jewish American lady. Oops, sorry, there's no light here. Oh, it's there itself by itself. And so we lived in Southern California for the last over 30 years. And w- Currently, I'm working in the healthcare industry, but I have been working with Jewish Community Foundation, as Susan knows, and some other the federation in the past. And I'm still very much involved in different causes. So really, kind of what I'm doing currently is I joined this coalition. It's called, like Marsha said, the American Israel Democracy Aid (AID) coalition. It's a new coalition that was formed after October 7th, mostly by expat Israelis who live here in the United States, um, many of which came from kind of like the Silicon Valley or from universities, mostly from the, I would say, center left group of liberal to kind of moderate liberal, I would say, Israelis who found, basically when the 2020, 2023 came and the new coalition formed in Israel and the new judicial overhaul or reform, whatever you want to call it, started. We were really there supporting our brothers and sisters who were in the streets protesting, and we did our best to support them also if it was politically or also in providing support, logistic support. So that's where we started, and then we decided to run for Congress, the World Zionist Congress, as part of the AZM election, the American Zionist Movement election that we have every 5 years, and as an American based slate. And we basically ran as an independent coalition. We were not affiliated with any of the parties in Israel, in Israeli Knesset, or any of the denominations here. What really glued us all together is the shared vision that we wanted to use that opportunity with the World Congress to ensure Israel's future as a democratic state and to also help to rebuild the north and south of Israel after October 7th. And those were like a couple of really important areas. And another really important areas as we're looking further into the World Zionist Congress and the World Zionist Organization, we saw that one thing is missing, and that is transparency. There's really not enough information of what happens on the ground, where money goes, how money is spent, accomplishments, key performance indicators, and so forth. So we ran on the slate of saying we want transparency. We wanted to bring transparency and accountability to the World Zionist Congress and the World Zionist Organization. We want also to do our best to mobilize funds and resources from the World Zionist Organization to support Israel as it's going through really incredible struggle right now, from the financial standpoint and from social standpoint. And we also wanted to create this type of coalition with other like-minded slates such as the Reform, Conservative, other slates who are really seeing we have shared vision overall, we have shared philosophy, and we all believe in coexistence. We all believe in the need for Israel to stay a democratic state, and so forth. So that was our mission. And of course, really important piece is to increase strength between Israel and the Jewish world, and primarily as representatives of the American Jewry to really ensure strength of the connection between Israel as a Jewish state and American Jewry. And so connecting all those different dots were really most important for us as we ran for slate. And the work was really hard. I must say it was a very challenging run this time. I mean, this was our first time, so we didn't have any experience doing it before. But we did win we don't have final results yet, but preliminary results show that we have gained about 4 seats in the Congress. So we are considered small, a small slate compared to the Reform and the Conservative, for example, slates that are really much larger, and are the largest ones among the non-Orthodox groups. So right now we really in the focus, we're focusing on creating a coalition with all of those wonderful individuals and leaders, such as the Reform, the Conservative, the Merkaz USA, the Conservative, and there is some other ones, Hatikva, which is kind of affiliated with currently what's called the Democratic Party in Israel, used to be Labour Party. So we are all on the same, running on a similar kind of philosophy. I'll stop here and see if I have any questions. I don't want it to dominate, and I want to make sure we cover kind of like, uh, let me know if anything comes up as
I
I'm.
I mean, I'll start with one question, which
Mhm.
is that it there, I think everybody recognizes that there was a record voter turnout, um, both in America, I guess, and in Israel for the Congress. What do you think accounts for that? Do you think that it was the the fear and outrage just about what's happening in the elected government? What accounts for that?
Yeah, just to kind of clarify, the way it works is that you have the way the elections work is that you have you separate the world by into 3/3. There is like anything in the army, in Israel army, there's always 3 things, 3 items. You always select it. So that's how it is. And so in Israel, there's the 1/3 of the votes come from Israel, or 1/3 of the seats. The seats in Israel actually are not elected. The public doesn't elect directly seats in Israel. The way it works with Israeli seats is it's proportional to the Knesset representation. So if they say Likud has about 30 seats in the Israeli Knesset, they would get about 20%, 25% of the seats that are part of that slice, in a pie. So it's kind of like we can do the math. I don't need to go into the math right now, but basically, we are the election I was part of. Well, we were part of Reform and Conservative and so forth, were the AZM part, which is the American Zionist Movement part. We get about 1/3 of the seats, the American side, and we all basically competed for those seats. It's about 155 seats, actually, to be exact, 155 seats. And so the way it works is it's proportional, again, similar to the Knesset representation. It depends on how many total number of votes you get, and then how many seats you get overall. And so, as Marsha mentioned, we did have a really significant more votes this time around. Every 5 years there is collection, and last time in 2020 there were about 100,000 votes in total in the US. This time around we had about 220 or 250,000, give and take. I don't have exact number right now. But that's a big, of course, significant increase. Still, if you think about the representation, it's still really low. I mean, and we want it to be much higher, of course. We want more Jews to be involved, and we want to get more engaged, and that's part of what we really hope for as a result of this process. In 5 years from now, we're going to get actually, we can double it, we can even triple it, hopefully. Yeah, I think the bottom line is I think there's been a lot of awareness partly because of, I think, not partly, I think maybe primarily because of October 7th and the ramification and the really impact of it on all world Jews, and primarily here in the United States with the anti-Semitism, what happened on campuses, the concern about Israel's future, all of which really made it much more of in front of a lot of more folks in the American Jewry population. So I think that's kind of what led to it.
That makes a lot of sense. Um,
Mhm.
I'm interested. So, talk about how some of the coalitions have responded, even just in the last, I would say, almost 2 weeks since there's been this new development, meaning elected or not, represented or not, each of these coalitions is actively already engaged in life
Yes,
in Israel on the ground. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I think
absolutely,
that's something we don't
absolutely.
know a lot about either.
Yes, thank you so much. Yes, and yeah, there's been actually really nice organic work that was really heartwarming. Well, first of all, our coalition, Eight Coalition, right away mobilized support to Israel and created webinars. And we reached out to our friends in the reform movement and the conservative movement and started working together with them on some initiatives. And one of them, for example, was uh, it's called Bait Biyachad, which is a home together. It's basically providing support to Israelis who got stranded in everywhere in the world, anywhere in the world, um, to have a place to go if they don't have a place, because they got stranded, they lost their flight was canceled. We have people in Thailand, we've had Israelis also in Greece and so forth and so forth, and also United States, of course. And so we launched this campaign to really match those Israelis with home hospitality, hosts who would be willing to let them open their homes for them while they're here waiting for their flight back to Israel. And we received a great deal of response from a huge amount of families here in the United States, locally as well. We're able to actually connect quite a lot of those Israelis who got stranded and reach out to us with host families and also hotels. And some of them were also they if they didn't have if we didn't have a host family, what we were able to do is also connect them with some individuals or shlichim who were opening their home for a Shabbat dinner and so forth. So it was just really nice to see, heartwarming to see the Jewish community coming together again and the kind of outreach that we had was really wonderful. We're still working on it, and I'm one of the volunteers who really on the ground continue to connect people. When we come, individuals reach out to us because even though the flights uh, begin from some locations, even in Los Angeles, actually, so yesterday was the first flight from Los Angeles back to Israel, a lot of flight. But still, we have a lot of folks who are, either we're not flying a lot, so they're still kind of stranded. They're still waiting for flights. There's a huge amount of wait list, so it's really hard. So we're trying to help as many as possible, and especially now because of the security issues and the war in Iran, there's been also a lot of fake type outreach, so we have to be really careful. That's why we created it together in collaboration with the Reform Movement, with the Israeli Foreign Ministry, to really help to make it very safe, so that what we do is we also we screen the Israelis and screen the host families as well prior to really connecting them. We do it very safely. So
And
that takes time and
yeah,
that takes a lot of
I
effort.
just wanted to ask you. This is first of all, that's actually so beautiful that you're doing that, and something, of course, that many of us wouldn't even think about would be a problem that people couldn't get into the country.
Hmm.
They had nowhere to go. And one of the things that I'm also, and again, I don't want to be the only one who asks questions, but the other thing I'm wondering about is, I mean, at some point before you have to leave, it would be helpful for you to share sort of in terms of your your friends and relatives who are there, sort of everything's going to change week to week. I understand that, but what is the feeling right now about what has happened? Um, you know, is there a sense of optimism? Is there
I'd
still
say
fear? All that.
there is a sense of optimism. There is a sense of really relief seeing what the Israeli army was able to do, the Air Force, and the support from the U.S. government, the administration. I mean, no one knew what to expect. This was really unbelievable, close to miracle, or a miracle. I mean, like what happened, and the fact that I mean, we really count everyone who gets injured and any fatalities in Israel, of course, and we cry and we really sad for that. At the same time, seeing that there aren't more than that. It's close to a miracle because of the ballistic missiles are so powerful, and yeah, it's a great relief in many ways, but also my friends and family. I just spoke to my sister in Tel Aviv. She doesn't have a mamad, like her own shelter in the house because they live in an apartment that was built in the 70s in the center of Tel Aviv. So every time they have the alert, they have to actually walk down stairs to the shelter, which is about 3-minute walk. Can you imagine at nighttime? Usually those alerts come at night, so we basically don't have much sleep, and it's not easy. And during the day, she's trying to go to work, and it's not easy. It's been really hard, but at the same time, she's so resilient. And she said that her best therapy is her grandchildren. She has a grandchildren who are between 3 and 10. And so she spends a great deal of time with them. And that really helps her to really um, stay kind of connected to the world and to herself. And so I see it as a really a great testimony for how Israelis handle it, similar to probably the way the Ukrainians. I mean, it's really incredible to see, the resilience. At the same time, I'm hearing more and more now of trauma, additional trauma. Of course, since October 7th, we've had a huge amount of trauma in Israel. Mental health is a huge crisis, and it's continuing to be even greater and greater, of course, because as people see the amount of damage happens everywhere in Israel right now, it really is a huge traumatic experience for everyone. Even if, no matter who you are or where you were, it's a huge trauma. And so that's a big problem we have to deal with, and that's part of the problem that we kind of segue to what we are doing, what we care about as Aid Coalition. Our slate again, we ran for really ensuring the future of Israel as a democratic state, as a Zionist democratic Jewish state. That's what we wanted to make sure that continue the legacy of Herzl and Ben Gurion and others who came after them. And right now is the time to really, we feel that the World Zionist Organization, the World Zionist Congress, has to really pivot and really shift its resources toward helping Israel, one, on the ground, to really move a lot of its resources. It has a huge amount of dollar amount that is going towards different operations in Israel. We're talking about over $1 billion a year in funding. That money, we see it partly it's already going to a lot of good, wonderful causes, and yet what we want is much more strategic planning around it to ensure that the money goes to support education system, the North and South communities who were really badly injured, I mean, impacted during the war since October 7th, and also everywhere in Israel right now, Tel Aviv as well, and everywhere else, that places like Beersheba. We know a lot of centers like Soroka, for example, the hospital, that have been heavily impacted and really damaged by the attacks. So and massive amount of families, communities have been relocated to hotels as a result of it, or have been unhoused as a result of it.
Yeah.
So we need to really help them. That's where I think we need to focus on. And as part of it is also connecting American Jewish communities to help them and to do things together in coordination in helping Israel.
So, first of all, that makes a lot of sense to me. One of the things I just want to welcome Ria and Sandra and those of you who joined. Today's session began at 9 because Itamar was sort of fitting us in between meetings. So this has been recorded, and we opened just with a little bit of a summary of um, how the elections panned out. One of the things I will just say that I learned from you this morning, Itamar, is that in some ways it doesn't matter how many people vote. There's still only going to be the same piece of pie for the American Jewish electorate. So even if 500,000 people vote in the WZO, it's still going to be divided according to percentages of which party you know received I think I'm saying the way you described it is that that more votes don't necessarily mean more electors in the WZO, that it's going to be this many people total, and the piece of pie is the same. It's just how that's divided will depend on who votes for which party. Did I say that correctly?
Yeah,
Meaning,
you have to think about. I want you kind of to think about like so. It's there's the pie is divided by three thirds. You have one third Israeli slice, which is the majority. It's about close to 200 seats that are seats that are being filled by representatives from the Knesset. Each party in the Knesset gets seats depending on how many seats in the Knesset they have. A little bit less than 200 seats. And then we have the US, and then we have the rest of the world. So the US is another third, and then the rest of the world is another third. And the US has so many, almost the same as Israel, because really it is the majority of the Jewish world, comes from the US. So that's why they get such a huge slice. Going back to what you were saying, the more votes that we get doesn't mean we get more seats. Let's say 155 seats in total that will have the U.S. representatives. So, um, we're not going to get more than 155 seats in total. But the more votes we have, the more you can actually make an impact on which one will be sitting and representing you. Currently what we're seeing, and I haven't mentioned it before, the largest bloc is the ultra-Orthodox right, is the largest bloc in the US. And we were actually trying to change things around by getting more votes who are liberal, moderate votes. Unfortunately, didn't make it. We didn't succeed in that as a whole, like us and Reform and the Conservative and Atikva and others. We were able to gain a little bit more seats, but we didn't really we weren't as effective as we hoped to be in getting more larger amount of the American slice, so to speak. So still, we have the majority of those votes of the seats go to some of those ultra-Orthodox groups. Not Orthodox, but
that makes
ultra-Orthodox
yeah,
groups.
that makes sense. I wanted to I do hope that some of the people on our call have questions for you. I hope they'll ask. So I'm gonna put this on gallery so I can see everybody better. Um, and if your avatar is on and not your person, if you want to raise your hand, feel free to do so. But I wanted to give you a chance to
I Yeah, and I wanted to mention also, as you know, of course, I'm happy to answer the questions. I just want to mention also that what we are doing, again, we are Aid Coalition. Our process is really, we sharply focus on the democratic process in Israel, creating a democratic process, ensuring democratic process in Israel, especially in light of what happened in 2022, 23, beginning of 2023, with the new coalition in Israel that wanted to change. Thankfully, they were not able to successfully do it so far. But they wanted to change the judicial system in Israel. That would have made it really undemocratic. The system in Israel would have really turned into be almost autocracy, if you will, close to it at least, like what happened in Poland in some ways, or in Hungary. So we really want to make sure that's not going to happen. We want to make sure that we work towards a constitution, developing a constitution in Israel, something that Israel has been trying to do for decades, and unfortunately, due to some opposition from the right, from the ultra-Orthodox groups, have not been able to make it happen. But I think we are hopeful that as a result of what happened, if we start small and we build it, we'll be able to create enough of a larger coalition, also here and in Israel, to create this, kind of a largest coalition, also in the Knesset. As part of it, what we're doing on the ground right now, and we're going to move towards it more and more in the coming year. And please come to me, and if we don't do it, then please call me on it, because it's really a number one priority for us is one, to create a community here, regional communities as well as a national community. It could be virtual, could be also in person, where we provide a great deal of opportunity for democratic process. And that means webinars about, creating discussions that are related to how to develop the democratic process, both here and in Israel, and to create a dialogue among, especially an intergenerational dialogue. We want to encourage all the younger generation. We see, of course, we struggle. We struggle with really connecting them. We want to really do a better job at connecting them to those kind of conversations. So that's part of what we want to do. We're already doing it by doing all these webinars that we've had since the beginning of the Iran-Israel war. Last week, we ran an amazing amount of, incredible amount of almost daily webinars. And so we will continue with that. We will also work towards helping to mobilize more funding towards Israeli communities. We've done it before the election. We've done it since October 7th, and we want to continue to do it, and we'll do more of that. And we really create a transparency. We want to show what we're doing, and we want to make sure that everyone knows what the World Zionist Organization and the World Zionist Congress is doing.
I think
Uh,
that's really important because I mean, I don't know um, if, for instance, Susan, have you, I mean, I know you've been involved with AJC for many years. Do you feel that you've been sort of connected to the capacity and the role played by the World Zionist Congress for all these years? I'm just really interested to know.
I've got to say that I'm confused about what the World Zionist Congress really does. I don't recall hearing through my AJC contacts any particular information. Certainly through our synagogues, we get the push to vote, and then it kind of drops from there. So, in part, um, I feel that I don't understand what kind of influence the more liberal parts of our Jewish world can assert if, for instance, the majority of the votes in the US were from right leaning entities, and in Israel, it would be the same. And I don't know about the rest of the world.
Right. That's I think is the great mystery. I think, and I so go ahead, Itamar. You should answer that, not me.
Great question. Great points, Susan. Thank you for bringing it up. So the World Zionist, in a nutshell, a World Zionist organization has part of its mission is to support major NGOs, non-government organizations, that are running based on Israel. The ones you've all heard of course, JNF, or Ken currently Israel, the Jewish Agency for Israel, Jafi or Sochnut, VITZO, and also the United Israel Appeal, which is the Keren Hayesod. Those are the major ones. And just supporting those organizations, we're dealing with about $1.5 billion every year goes towards those organizations. That goes to their general funds, operations, and so forth. In addition to it, the World Zionist Congress elects and appoints the leaders of those organizations, the CEOs, presidents, the directors of the key departments of those organizations, and so forth. That's where really the major power, the most power is. In addition to it, the World Zionist Organization, which is basically it gets its power, is authorized by the World Zionist Congress, has its own operation, administrative arm. And through that arm, you have all kinds of operations, one of which is the education part. And that where you do all kinds of, for example, supporting education system of all plants across the world, around the world, Hebrew classes and so forth, and also subsidies to come to Israel for education programs, all kinds of different types of education programs, and some other things. So, for example, the settlement department, that's the department that is in charge of helping rural areas in Israel to either provide them more infrastructure support or to help them to rebuild communities.
So
For example,
as I understand it, Susan, it's really it the WZO cannot make Israel policy decisions, but they do have a tremendous amount of money to decide how it's allocated for programs in Israel and around the world that address the needs of world Jewry and Israeli Jewry. So it's that's what they're largely talking about, is program and funding for Jewish life broadly. Would if it is that accurate, Itamar?
yes, thank you for summarizing it. That's exactly in a nutshell. And
And that's important because it's a lot of money. We're not talking about, a couple hundred million. We're talking about more than $1 billion. And this is money, as I understand it, Itamar, that has been collecting and growing interest since Herzl's time back in the late 1800s. Meaning there's been a pot of money. We're spending the interest off a giant nut that will never go away. I mean, unless the whole world collapsed financially. Did I say that right, Itamar?
correct. Yeah, we have the money in the reserves, and they're coming, the assets or the proceeds, or let's say, or the revenue comes from all kinds of assets in Israel and around the world that have been purchased over the years through by Jewish people over the more than 100 years. So that money continues to grow, and is been spent over, like as Marshall mentioned, is over $1 billion, is about $1 billion, or no, $1.5 billion per year is going towards all these different NGOs and different operations.
And so, for example, I would just say, and I'm guessing, and then Ria, I'll let Ria answer a question. that even though Israel itself might not advance reform congregations in the state of Israel or progressive Jewish learning institutions for kids there, the WZO could say, "We'll give you, $300,000 for the such and such schools for progressive Jewish learning among children in parts of Israel." That's why it's so important, because it actually does impact life on the ground. That doesn't necessarily have to do, even if the politics does not go our way, this can, and that's why it's essential.
It is.
So, um,
It
real,
is. And
go ahead. I'm
yes,
sorry.
good point. And the and if you go towards Iran, Israel, you see a lot of places that are being built by the World Zionist Organization and so forth. Now, Susan, to your point, right now we have a right-leaning government, a coalition in Israel. The Knesset is a right-leaning coalition, of course. So they represented also, they've been represented largely in their slice, in the Israeli slice of the World Zionist Congress. But keep in mind the reform or the liberal side and left side is still very, very substantial. It's almost the same. It's almost 50-50. And because we have also the rest of the world that is much more liberal still in their belief. I mean, you do have, I mean, of course, in the US, and I get to it also. There has been some irregularities in the election campaigns in some of this voting, and we're dealing with it now. Some of the ultra-Orthodox groups actually uh, faked some of their votes. It was not done correctly, so there's a lot of correction is done now by the AZM regarding it. But still, with we're still seeing us. You mean us, meaning the left, center left, really has a massive, massive influence on the World Zionist Congress. So part of our work together is to create a coalition, and we are in negotiation. It's a political negotiation like anything else, and we are in negotiation now with our friends like the Reform, Conservative, and so forth and
Yeah,
so forth, to create this largest coalition that will enable us to do what we want to do.
that's right. Now, which is really exciting. No, and no one can overstate the importance of the reform movement in Israel, what it's become, which is so interesting and such a great thing. Rio, I wanted you to have a chance to ask your question before Itamar has to leave.
Oh, okay. Okay. I wanted to ask two questions. One of them is you mentioned different organizations that you fund, that the World Zionist, not you personally. Um, and I don't think you mentioned the New Israel Fund. Is that one of the organizations?
No, New Israel Fund is not affiliated with the World Zionist Organization.
Okay.
It's a private fund.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that is not related, not working together with. No.
Okay, so
Mhm.
that the WZO funds more public type of
Correct.
not well that's public, but non-private fund organizations. Is that
Well,
right?
couldn't you say, Itamar, that it's possible that the New Israel Fund might allocate monies to some of the same programs that would also be supported by the WZO, but they're not affiliated one with the other. The
That's it. Exactly.
New
Yes.
Israel, because that's right there, that's different because that's a nonprofit, and the WZO is not a nonprofit; it's a completely different entity.
Oh,
But if
okay.
your question
The,
is
Yeah.
mhm.
so
Yes.
so any program in Israel could get its funding from a number of different sources. One could be the government, one could be the WZO, and one could be from private nonprofits that fund these organizations.
Mhm.
Those are
Mhm.
three different streams of support that would go to something.
Okay.
Exactly.
And
Good.
then I also wanted to ask about is the WZO at all connected with the Jewish Agency, or is there any Because
Yes.
I missed the first half of
Yes. No, no,
this. Yeah.
that's a great question. Great question, Ria. Yes. So the WZO actually supports the Jewish Agency for Israel. The Jewish Agency for Israel, Jaffe, is one of the largest organizations or NGOs that is supported by the World Zionist Organization or World Zionist Congress, I would say. And so that's part of that. When I mentioned $1.5 billion to go to those organizations, so one of them is the Jewish Agency for Israel. Another one is the Jewish National Fund, or Keren Kayemet Israel. Of course, not all of their funds of those organizations come from the World Zionist Congress. They do have also their own private donation drives, as you know, and so forth. They do really rely on the money comes from the World Zionist Congress. Um, yes. So yeah. So it is, and also, like I said before, the World Zionist Congress appoints the leaders of the Jewish Agency for Israel, Jewish National Fund, and so forth. And I say it because I don't take it lightly. Well, that's actually most important piece. We want to see leaders who are professional, first of all. They're not politically appointed only because of their political affiliation, which there's a tendency to do in politics, as we know. So part of what our effort is to ensure that, first of all, the individuals who are being elected are going to have the background, the professional background and proven track record that show that they will be able to lead those organizations for the next 5 years. Two, and ensure that they also align with our philosophy overall. They align with our philosophy, most importantly, that Israel is a democratic state. Pluralism is important. Coexistence is important. For example, we don't want to have a leader of, say, Jewish Agency for Israel that is ultra-Orthodox who is against, for example, coexistence, who is against democratic process, or is against, or a Ben-Gvir kind of person who is against um, some groups in Israel, who doesn't want to support LGBTQ plus or the reform movement, and so forth and so forth. That's really important for us. And so we will push towards, again, with other friends, with our coalition partners, to uh, to ensure that we get the right people there appointed to those positions.
Yes, I mean, so that is all. So for me, I just want to say I don't know about all my friends on this call, but this was actually an incredibly enlightening conversation because it is very confusing. The whole world, the whole world system right now is very confusing. But to have a better understanding of the value of why we all voted, why that's important, is very meaningful, at least to me and to each of us as we are, emissaries of this information to other people. Because if Susan Glass doesn't know, and I don't know, and we're unclear, and we're the people on the inside sitting in meetings and organizations. I mean, again, there might be a greater understanding on the parts of some of you, but none of this is obvious, and often no one explains it. And that's why I wanted to have, Itamar spoke prior to the election because I wanted to not only understand, I knew people had voted, but I wanted you to understand what you were voting for and why it was important. Now that the votes have come in, there's a preliminary tally. It looks like the Congress will be fairly similar to what it was before. And that's actually a good thing because some of the decisions that are made really do um, uh, they don't counter, but they are an antidote in some ways to some of the things that the current government is doing. I think that's the best way to say that. And of course, working in partnership, as Ria noted, with some really important NGOs and nonprofits that are also supporting that work. So, everything's both siloed and interconnected at the same time. And Ria, if you want to hear the beginning of this, the whole session was recorded. Um, I want to say, first of all, Itamar, you're doing such great work. It's so important. And may the work of AID and all of the partners in the coalition you're building go from strength to strength. I
Thank you.
think we should just all take a moment. I really want to take a moment of silence on this call right now, for us to just each of us express in our hearts a prayer for Israel, everybody in the Middle East, and a speedy end to what I hope will have been a very effective operation. So just for a moment, and then we'll come back together. You know, as Jews, very emotional. We really need each other more than ever right now. I feel so deeply about that, and learning together is such a beautiful way to connect. So if for all of you here, I hope you'll consider joining us for the next 9 weeks as we do these seminar. As Daniel Levine he's going to give a preview of his next semester's class at HUC called, sort of seminars in Jewish thought. And each lecture will be dedicated to an essential Jewish thinker from basically the 17th century, the Napoleonic era, until today. So it should be fascinating. A little bit of a divergence from politics and Bible, but I think it'll be a summer of great learning. Lisa Siegel, I'm so happy that you came. And Matthew, glad to have you back. And may just if you have any questions, Itamar, would you do me a favor? Would you put your email in the chat so that if anyone does have a question, they can copy it and write to you. And I will also
Absolutely.
send that to everybody.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. I'm happy to do that. And if I may say, thank you everyone so much for listening, and thank you so much, Marsha, Rabbi Toshin, for really making it happen. This is really amazing opportunity, and I'm really looking forward to hearing from you if you have any questions. I'm also I think there's a lot we need to do, all of us, and I'm happy, if you could share it, if you can just connect with the next generation, anyone in your life who is younger, families who are maybe you feel like they maybe really could benefit from hearing more about what we're doing. There's more that we're going to be make available for everyone.
Well, let
And
us know, and the collaborative will always advertise that for you, Itamar. So, I
great.
mean, if you get, I'm happy to be a conduit for anybody who reads the emails that we send out. I have no idea who that is, but and ask them to share with others, because I mean, it really is word of mouth that makes a difference in everything.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
You're
All
welcome.
right.
And Titi, I'm so glad you came to this. We've missed you, and even though we can't see you, it's just wonderful that you're here. All right, take care, everybody. Have a good week.
You too. Bye-bye.